In the previous episode, with Michonne's help, Rick resolved his inner turmoil and decided not to insist on returning to the Civic Republic. Together, they fought their way out, cutting through hordes of zombies and escaping successfully, with the building behind them collapsing. The traces of their lives there were buried together. With no worries, their journey back home seemed exceptionally easy and pleasant. Lady Luck seemed to be on their side. Not only did they find a functioning car, but the fuel in the back seat was enough to get them all the way to Alexandria. When hunger struck on the road, they opened the trunk of an abandoned car only to find it stocked with instant noodles. It had been more than a decade since the world ended, and finding food was already a rare luxury. They found a quiet little yard where they lit a campfire and enjoyed a romantic dinner of instant noodles. The next day, their good luck continued. They even came across a soda vending machine. Although a zombie appeared to cause trouble, the outcome for the zombie was predictably grim. Refreshing soda and plenty of instant noodles made their journey home feel all the more easy and pleasant. By the afternoon, they passed a small, quiet countryside shop and decided to stop to search for supplies. The first thing they did upon entering was split up to check for any dangers. Once they confirmed the coast was clear, did they start searching for useful items. Rick casually spun the display of name tags and picked one up to show Michonne.
Is this a terrible gift to bring to RJ?
No one has ever once called him Junior.
Okay.
You're bringing yourself back. It's more than enough.
The brave man, huh?
You are. More than ever.
Michonne moved to the other side of the shop to look for anything of use. Rick picked up a necklace, broke off the pendant that read Michelle, and kept the initial M as a small surprise for Michonne.
He might be ready for this.
Is that who he is?
Judith has a sword. They're us.
Talking about the past stirred something in Rick. He recalled that Michonne had been his son Carl's best friend and how he had slowly fallen in love with her during that time, a period filled with both awkwardness and sweetness. Michonne was delighted by what he shared. Her husband had finally remembered his past, a sign that Rick was no longer haunted by illusions but instead focused on cherishing the present. They rested for a moment before setting off again to find their next stop. In the distance, a volcano had recently erupted, and thin plumes of ash still seeped from the cracks in the forest rocks. They trudged through the dense woods, laden with supplies, until Michonne paused at a signpost.
The people from the people.
A sudden noise alerted both Michonne and Rick, and they raised their weapons as they charged forward. When they got closer, they saw that a few survivors were struggling with the zombies. Rick swung his machete at the zombie, only to hear the sharp clang of metal striking metal. Michonne rushed in and struck the zombie on the head with an iron rod. They both stared, astonished. The zombie's skin was as hard as stone. Despite the heightened difficulty, Rick and Michonne's seamless teamwork was more than enough to handle this high-defense mutant zombie. The survivors, now freed from their trap, watched them approach with wary eyes.
They get crusty like that because of the steam vents calcified or something. And there's the wet ones. You got your baked and your boiled. Kind of like pierogies.
After listening to the man's incoherent introduction, Michonne guessed that they must be starving. Rick caught onto her hint, set down his backpack, and Michonne handed a few packs of instant noodles to the survivors. In the end times, humans need to help each other in order to survive well. Rick and Michonne simply wanted to pass on an act of kindness, but it was clear not everyone thought the same way. Michonne and Rick had encountered many people like this, ungrateful and arrogantly self-important. Sometimes, it was best for both sides to take a step back. It was better that way. However, self-righteous people never listened to advice. Red kept rambling on, trying to intimidate them, but before he could finish his threat, Michonne launched a sudden attack. With Rick's quick support, they had Red on the ground within moments, and Michonne picked up the gun and aimed it at them. Seeing the tables turn so drastically, Red began to regret his earlier actions. They had always survived through petty theft and ambushes, never expecting to come across formidable people like Rick and Michonne. To make sure they learned their lesson and didn't harm others again, Michonne, still furious, retrieved the food and placed it back into her backpack right in front of them. Rick also removed all the bullets from their gun and tossed the empty weapon far away. Before leaving, he warned them not to make any sudden moves and to keep their word about not hurting innocent people. As night fell, Rick and Michonne reached their resting place safely. Mindful of the day's earlier encounter, Rick set up tripwires around the room, creating a makeshift alarm system. Then, he went over to the table and sat down, ready to share a drink with Michonne.
Us against the world.
We're saving it. I am surprised you took back the noodles, though.
They pulled a gun on us. You don't get noodles for that.
Rick pulled the necklace from his front pocket and placed it in her hand. Michonne looked at it and was pleasantly surprised. She loved this thoughtful little gift, and she took Rick's hand as they spent a wonderful night together. But what they didn't know was that, just before dawn, a figure in a black cloak appeared outside. She effortlessly disabled the alarm systems. It was clear that she knew Rick and Michonne very well. As they slept, Rick and Michonne remained unaware until a sudden voice cut through the silence of the room. Rick and Michonne leaped up, scrambling for their weapons. Standing before them was Jadis, holding a gun pointed straight at them. She ordered them to sit down slowly and tie each other up. With no choice caught between a rock and a hard place, they complied. They could have fought back, but they weren't sure if Civic Republic soldiers were outside, and they were puzzled as to how Jadis had found them. Jadis sneered. I knew something was off. The retrieval team confirmed the helicopter crash, but when both of you disappeared without a trace, I got suspicious. So, I drove back to investigate. The zombie corpses and empty instant noodle wrappers I saw along the way confirmed my suspicion. This road is the shortest path to Alexandria, so I was certain you were still alive. Hearing this, Rick and Michonne regretted their oversight, but they also learned something crucial. Jadis was alone.
I saved your life. You took it. You took it from him. You took it from me. You took it from our children. All those years they grew up without their father. All those years I didn't know if he was alive or dead.
You stole our family, Anne.
I didn't kill you in your sleep because I needed to thank you. By dying here today, Alexandria will remain safe and your children will have a better world.
Rick pushed the bed toward Jadis, knocking the gun from her hands. Michonne seized the moment, grabbed an axe, and swung it at Jadis' abdomen.
No! Rick! We gotta go!
Wounded, Jadis fled to her car and sped away. Rick and Michonne quickly followed, driving after her. Michonne was baffled by why Rick had stopped her from shooting earlier. Rick explained, Jadis left an Alexandria dossier at the Civic Republic headquarters. If she dies, there'll be an investigation, but Michonne didn't care about any of that. All she wanted was to kill the woman who had kept their family apart for so many years. Any consequences could be dealt with later. Within moments, they caught up to Jadis' car. Michonne maneuvered the car, trying to ram Jadis off the road. Jadis, ever sharp, suddenly braked, falling behind and regaining control. It was undeniable. Both Michonne and Jadis were skilled drivers, each adjusting rapidly. Michonne noticed a slope along the roadside her chance had come. She accelerated and sideswiped Jadis' car from the side. Jadis' car skidded to a stop and tumbled down the slope. Whether she survived was unknown. Rick and Michonne were about to check when a few zombies approached. The couple counted to 3, then opened their doors simultaneously. 3 minutes later, they had dealt with the zombies and reached the bottom of the slope. The car was smashed against a tree, emitting white smoke, but the driver's seat was empty. The woman had escaped. Rick, however, knew the location of the nearest Civic Republic rendezvous point. If they hurried, they could catch up to Jadis, not far away. Red, the man who had been taught a lesson by Rick and Michonne earlier, was still grumbling bitterly about why he had to go hungry while others managed to find so much food. Suddenly, a figure stumbled into their territory. It was Jadis. Her face was pale, and she was clearly weak from significant blood loss. She says sincerely, I'm being chased by 2 people. Can you help me? My community is safe, with high walls and plenty of food. In return, I'll offer you shelter. You just need to get me a few miles from here.
What?
You're tall.
This area was part of a vast forest, making it truly difficult to find Jadis. Rick and Michonne walked as they argued. Rick's stance was that they couldn't let Jadis die. Striking a deal with her might secure Alexandria's future. Michonne, however, wants to kill Jadis. While debating, they noticed bloodstains on the trees ahead, proof they were heading in the right direction. Below the slope, there were several houses where Jadis might be hiding. They approached the house with caution. On one of the wooden racks inside, a bloody handprint confirmed their suspicions. The house was spacious, with sheets hanging from bamboo poles, complicating their search. To find Jadis quickly, they decided to split up. Deep inside the house, Rick caught sight of a tall silhouette. It had to be Jotty's. The figure turned, but...
It's you. I'm sorry. She promised she'd take us with her.
Rick didn't want to kill innocent people, so he persuaded them not to believe the woman's promises. But these survivors, tired of their harsh, wandering lives, were not about to pass up this chance. Two men raised their guns, but they were no match for Rick and Michonne, who had survived countless battles in this post-apocalyptic world. In moments, the men were knocked to the ground. The woman was so scared that she kept backing up, not noticing at all that the zombies were approaching behind her. Hearing her screams, the two men tried to help, but they quickly became food for the zombies as well. Jotty still had a gun in her hand, so Rick didn't dare make any sudden moves. He simply shouted, urging Jotties to come out and talk.
And I will die for the cause. I'm not a traitor. Not like you.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Jotties wasn't foolish. As long as the Alexandria dossier was still with the Civic Republic, Rick and Michonne wouldn't dare kill her. With that thought, Jotties confidently stepped out and said, if I bleed out, die, or get bitten by these zombies, and I don't show up for the summit, soldiers will search my quarters. When that happens, they'll find the location of your home, and your children and loved ones will die with me. Michonne's rage simmered beneath the surface. This wretched woman had kept their family apart for so long and was now threatening them again. Jotties did not resist. She was betting that Rick and Michonne wouldn't risk killing her and would instead have to protect and treat her. Jotties knew she had gambled correctly. Gritting through the pain, she continued, it doesn't have to be like this. Rick, after all these years, we are both part of the Civic Republic. Beale holds you in high regard. If you return, you'll be promoted and paid well, becoming a leader on par with Pearl. You'll learn the true scale and reach of the Civic Republic and take part in plans to save the world. Rick listened, tempted. Isn't this exactly what Okafor wanted to do? But looking at Michonne, he fell into deep thought.
You don't really want to kill everyone back home, Anne. I know you don't.
It's not about want. It's about keeping your humanity or saving humanity. And it is a choice. I've chosen my community. I've chosen my life. So who's gonna die today? The two of you? Or me? And everyone back home?
Rick was at an impasse, uncertain of what to do. Michonne's eyes lit up with an idea.
But Rick, there has to be a sacrifice. Since I found you, all that I've done has been for us. But now I see, this can't end with us going home.
Well, what's it gonna be?
Okay.
Hearing Rick's response, Jotties exhaled a sigh of relief. She was genuinely afraid that these two maniacs would throw caution to the wind and kill her. Rick proposed his condition. He would return with Jotties and inform the Civic Republic military that he was the sole survivor of the crash. In return, Jotties needed to keep everything that happened a secret and ensure Alexandria's safety. With the agreement made, Michonne walked out and tossed her weapon to the ground before leaving. Her only mission now was to go home. Rick also tossed out his backpack and knife, cautiously revealing half of his body. Jotties emerged cautiously, visibly weakened, as if a gust of wind could knock her over. Thankfully, she didn't go back on her word and set down her handgun as well. Seeing this, Rick stepped out fully.
Which is why I agreed to your deal. Her getting the med kit. I don't trust you either. Drop it.
But Michonne hadn't left at all. They didn't trust Jotties, and the agreement was just a ruse. Suddenly, the three survivors, now turned into zombies, lunged at Jotties. The turn of events was so sudden that even Michonne couldn't intervene in time. By the time Rick pulled the zombies off, Jotties' neck had already been torn open, blood gushing from the wound. Things are truly unpredictable. Jotties struggled to sit up and touched her neck in disbelief. She knew what this meant. At the brink of death, memories flood the mind, and as the saying goes, the dying speak with sincerity. Jotties began recounting how, as the leader of the scavengers, she had done many terrible things to keep her people alive. But when the saviors destroyed her community, she was left with an all-consuming fear of failure. Joining the Civic Republic military gave her hope. She clawed her way up, determined to hold onto everything she had gained. When she learned that Rick and Michonne had both disappeared, she grew restless. Even though the Civic Republic had absolute power, she always had a feeling that one day Alexandria and the Civic Republic military would collide. She had a premonition that if that day ever came, Rick and his wife would prevail. Driven by this fear, she hurriedly prepared a dossier as protection and even pursued them to eliminate the threat. But the outcome turned out to be the complete opposite of what she had expected. Now, with death closing in, survival, status, and power were slipping away, becoming meaningless. During her years in the Civic Republic, Jadis would secretly visit Alexandria each year and have heartfelt conversations with Gabriel. Of course, Gabriel never knew Rick was still alive. There was a bit of unspoken affection between them. Setting aside everything else, it was not impossible for them to have been together, but Jadis knew Gabriel was her weakness. For the sake of her ambitions within the Civic Republic, she had often thought about severing that last emotional tie.
You keep lying to yourself. You don't keep coming back here. You never left.
You're wrong. I'm not.
Go ahead. Shoot me.
In the end, a small piece of conscience had held her back. She never fired that fatal shot.
Go.
What is the true meaning of life? Jadis now seemed to grasp it, yet it was beyond her reach. She told Rick, "The Alexandria dossier is in the room at the base. Go back, find it, and destroy it. Then go home and reunite with your loved ones." To her surprise, Michonne refused. While she did intend to destroy the dossier, she wasn't going home. Instead, she wanted to help Rick make a change, because according to what Jadis said, the Civic Republic military had immense ambitions. With their current way of operating, it was only a matter of time before they killed all the survivors in the outside world, and even Alexandria would be affected. Michonne believed that the citizens of the Civic Republic were unaware of the military's dark deeds. She wanted to help Rick rise through the ranks, uncover the secrets, and expose the truth to stop their malicious agenda.
We're gonna do that.
Jadis didn't argue. She knew her time was almost up. With her last conscious effort, she tore a ring from around her neck. This was the ring Rick had planned to use to propose to Michonne 7 years ago. Unfortunately, the bridge explosion and Rick's disappearance disrupted everything, and the ring was later found by Gabriel. Years later, during one of Jadis' secret meetings with Gabriel, she had asked for and taken the ring. Now, it had come full circle back to Rick.
Please.
Rick understood the meaning behind Jadis' final request. He picked up the handgun from the ground. Jadis was already dead, so they needed to hurry back to the Civic Republic military to destroy the Alexandria dossier and ensure Rick's promotion, gaining access to all the military's secrets, because the summit's convening might signify that the Civic Republic military was nurturing a groundbreaking plan. It was time for someone to put an end to their ruthless killing. As they walked on, Rick halted Michonne. In that forest, such a romantic scene unfolded.
Till my last breath, I am yours.
I could never have imagined this. But it could only ever have been you. I'm yours.
He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they sealed it with a deep, heartfelt kiss, pledging themselves to each other forever. Half an hour later, Rick and Michonne reached the rendezvous point and boarded the helicopter, setting off toward the Civic Republic. Let's hope they succeed.